Good morning. Welcome to another edition of Breakfast Central. We are very excited to be here. It is the middle of the week and we're counting down the days to the end of the month. It just feels like January started yesterday and the month is flying by really fast. We're hoping that you started running, of course, with your vision and goals for 2025. I am Olive Emodi and you're welcome to Breakfast Central.
And I am Osaogi Ogbawa, welcoming you as well. We hope that you enjoy the next 2 hours with us as we deliberate on some of the major conversations happening here in Nigeria. We encourage you, as always, to be a part of our conversations by following us on all social media platforms at News Central TV. And if you're watching us on YouTube, do well to, of course, leave a message and let us know your thoughts on these conversations. We, of course, will be sharing with you what breakfast headlines are this morning and also sharing with you what our top stories are. But before that, one of the stories on the Punch newspapers this morning says in reaction to some of the security conversations that we've had in the last long while. And it says here, definitely coming from, I believe, the Oyo State Governor Seyi Makinde, but it says, bandits influx, task force meets as Amotekun and police tightens southwest boundaries. If you remember, early in the week, I believe on Monday, Governor Seyi Makinde did raise, a subtle alarm about the, influx of or possibilities of bandits and terrorists, getting into southwestern Nigeria. It's not new. I think we've heard this, for a couple of years now, the possibilities that, they are flowing from northern Nigeria into the southwest. The southeast, of course, has its share of violence, in the hands of the unknown gunmen, as they have been called. Governor Seyi Makinde did once again mention on Monday that there, is a possibility that they, of course, the Southwest might also have the same issues. And so, these things, I believe, will shape the security conversations, I believe, at the presidency, at the top level, but amongst the governors of the Southwest, and the conversations, once again, on how to protect the Southwest from the influx of bandits. At what level do the state governors need to play? They are the chief security officers of their states, even if many people would argue that that is mostly just on paper. But, what can they possibly do? How strong is, Amotekun, for example, in the states that it exists, in protecting the Southwest, if these things are actually true, if these fears turn out to be a reality? How strong is Amotekun in protecting, the Southwest? Do we have enough of Nigeria's military to then move from the northwest and and other northern regions where they are located, where they are stationed, to the southwest? Can we continue to spread our army thin to, of course, cover the southwest and maybe, of course, take some of them who are currently mounting roadblocks in the southeast and move them to the southwest? It's important questions, that I believe that the southwest governors must start to ask themselves. How quickly should they also start to take action? And again, is Amotekun going to be enough? Is this a time when we then start to have more serious conversations about, state police?
I was going to bring that, exactly, because that was the conversation we had yesterday with our guest, Mr. Adekoya, and he did talk about state police. At the start of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's administration, whilst there was a clamoring for removal of subsidy and the others, state police became a mainstream conversation at some point. The argument, if you remember, there were times when it felt like we were having conversations about state police every week, to have state police, to encourage state police and not, to make it official or not. And these conversations at some point picked up steam, but it feels like the conversation, even in the House, we could see the debates about state police in the House, but it feels like the steam has calmed down. Yesterday, our guest was talking about how important it is because when we then have state police, we can reduce the pressure that we're mounting on, our armed forces and, ensuring that these armed forces are able to face what they are originally meant to do, which is to protect Nigeria's territorial integrity from, external aggression, as opposed to them having to deal with every single tiny bit of distraction. At this point, I'm not
even sure if you can still call it external aggression.
Because it feels more like internal aggression now.
Exactly, and I said yesterday that we need to have a clearer understanding of what exactly we're dealing with, and what how deep these problems are. For those who didn't get to watch the interview on Al Jazeera by the Chief of Defense Staff General Christopher Musa, he spoke extensively on some of these things. I initially didn't watch everything, and yesterday I saw a few more clips from that interview. And one of the things that he spoke on about was the possibility that these groups, he mentioned Boko Haram, the interviewer was asking him, how have these groups, and he pretty much was saying something, how have these groups survived for 15 years? How have they continued to stay afloat for 15 years, even with the numbers that the army has, well, as they will describe it, eliminated or is eliminated is the word that they use. Neutralized. Yes.
Yeah.
We hear every now and then about 100, about 1,000, that have been neutralized. And so how have they stayed afloat for 15 years? And General Christopher Musa was asking the same question. And I feel he was trying to make a point, but not make, direct accusations at the international community. Because he was saying that, the international community maybe also needs to be asked. The UN, he was saying the UN needs to be also be asked.
He actually did make throw some direct shots at them, especially when, they were asking him questions about the allegations that Amnesty International, I believe, has leveled against Nigeria's military about how, they're abusing Nigerians. And he says, look, these camps that you make reference to, there are other international communities there. If there are other international communities there and this has occurred over time and nothing has been done, that means they are all complicit. When they talked about arms and ammunition and they talked about procurement, how procurement is such a struggle for Nigeria's military. And the interviewer asked him about, if procurement is a struggle, are you admitting that maybe Nigeria's armed forces is corrupt? And he said, he's not admitting to that, but he did say that procurement is a struggle because they're not the ones who make these arms. They buy these arms. Yeah. So if you are talking about, if you're raising eyebrows at them, you should also be raising eyebrows about with those who are going into business with them, who are part of the people who have to sell these arms and ammunition. So maybe they're also complicit. So I do feel like he did definitely throw some direct shots and said that that they're open to being investigated. That if Al Jazeera wants to come, they'll give them all access, to come in, to investigate and carry out whatever, ask whatever questions they need to ask, so unfettered access.
He didn't point direct fingers at anybody, but I think he said enough to raise everyone's eyebrows as to what exactly he was trying to say, or the point that he was trying to make. I think it is safe to say that the Nigerian government knows more than they are telling Nigerians. Nigeria's security agencies and the heads of security agencies, the current ones, the previous ones, as far back as, in recent history, Buratai, they know more than they are telling Nigerians. And it's not because, of their own complicity with this, but because I feel like they have also figured out where the support for these groups might be coming from. But it's not a thing that they can reveal to Nigerians. Unfortunately, they have also not been able to play their own part completely, or at least effectively enough to at least so that Nigerians can say, okay, yes, you've done your part, right? Anything else that happens after this now, we can clearly see that these groups are being funded or being sponsored or being supported by external forces, if that's the case. But have we closed our borders? Can we ensure and tell every Nigerian who's watching us this morning, who listened to the interview with, General Christopher Musa, that all Nigeria's borders have been tightened and not a pin will pass through our borders without, immigration spotting or without the army spotting, security agencies spotting it. So, until we do that and we can say, okay, we beat our chest that we have all the ammunition that we need, we have all the funding that we need, we have all the men that we need, our borders are completely closed, we can trace every financing that goes to these terror groups, then both sides have questions that must be answered. But it is going to be Armed Forces Remembrance Day on the 15th, and I will bring this up again.
And we must applaud them. That's part of the reaction that we're seeing. A number of people, first of all, people have applauded him for that interview. Many Nigerians who have said that they've been very proud of how he's represented Nigeria's defense, to the international community, because oftentimes when the international community speaks about defense and insecurity challenges, it almost feels like, oh, Nigeria is the place where they have the worst insecurity challenges. Before you know, they're sending one advisory or the other, whereas all these countries also have insecurity challenges they're dealing with. So not to in any way undermine the work that our Nigerian soldiers are putting put in every day, showing up, some of them losing their lives, and their family members having to lose their loved ones because they're protecting us. Every day, this month we'll say thank you, and especially on the 15th of January, we certainly will say thank you to our armed forces. About 5,200 rural women across the 44 local government areas of Kano State have received startup capitals to support their businesses. The Kano State Governor, while handing the sum of 50,000 naira to each of the beneficiaries at the Coronation Hall of the Government House in the state capital, says that his administration will continue to prioritize the empowerment of women at all levels. News Central's Emmanuel Bagudu reports.
A routine now becoming more common within Kano State. It's also a show of delight and gratitude for many of these women expected beneficiaries of the state government business support scheme. Top government officials in attendance say that the role of women in nation building cannot be overemphasized. Our mission in the Konkosia movement is to uplift everyone to become equal in the society. Everyone is beyond poverty. Everyone can be governor, everyone can be president, everyone can be council chairman. The Kano State Government says that the intervention is part of the government's strategy to boost small and medium-scale enterprises in the state.
We, as a government, reasoned that you stand a higher chance of creating wealth in our society when you are not indebted. We hope you will reciprocate our magnanimity by investing wisely and working hard to break out of the poverty cycle. As your government, whom you have entrusted with your popular mandate in 2023, I will be the happiest person to see that by next year, inshallah, most of you have become employers of labor in your locality through this program.
The state government says that the women will be clustered into cooperative societies so that they can be mentored and effectively trained to gain entrepreneurial skills. In Kano, for News Central, I am Emmanuel Bagudu.
And that there is the report. Thank you very much, Emmanuel, for bringing us that update there in Kano State. We can see the video of the women being given 50,000 naira. When we talk about entrepreneurship, Osauge, here in Nigeria, and of course the state governors, a number of times, I think it's a good look when we see them giving monies to these women to be able to help them with starting off their businesses and to be able to help them kickstart and maybe their entrepreneurial careers or just inject that into their business. However, what I do hope for is, and not to be a party pooper, but what it is whilst we're giving them these monies, we must recognize that the climate right now isn't even as favorable. How long will these, be able to last enough to sustain their businesses? I think that the ultimate good that we can do, whilst this is a great move, not to condemn it in any way, whilst it's great to give these business owners money to be able to fund or inject into their businesses, it's important that the ultimate goal is in the shortest time possible to be able to create an economy where businesses can thrive, because you can inject in thousands of money, 50,000 today, 100,000 to these business people, and they won't see the returns, because what we have is an economy where they're having to pay ×3 for electricity, where they need to run their businesses on fuel because they don't have electricity, and fuel is over 900 naira. So I think the bigger picture is for state governments to also start to look for ways they can double up or increase their internally generated revenue so that they're not depending on a federal allocation monthly. And then for us as a country to, our leaders to strategically look for ways to improve the business climate for business owners. Because if you give a business owner today, you give these women 50,000 naira today, they are grateful, they are thankful. You keep giving them these monies. After a while, what we'll just is just like pouring water into a basket, because the climate doesn't favor businesses being run successfully without all the hitches that the current climate provides for business owners in Nigeria.
Yeah, you would also just, note that 50,000 naira, the value of 50,000 naira today, may not be so much, compared to what it was maybe in 2012 or 2010. But I want to believe
that's
that the
Kano State government... You go back to 2020, it's not the same value.
Oh, yeah. But I want to believe that the Kano State government has done its own assessment and it knows exactly what, level that, these entrepreneurs are, and, sees that 50,000 naira might be beneficial to them. So kudos, to the government in that regard. But it doesn't take away, any of the points that you've made, which is, that, the state government itself must be able to do what it can to elevate, the realities of, business owners and business entrepreneurs, in that state. If you look at Nigeria's history, Kano State, has always been, or used to be, I don't know if it's still on that level, but it was one of the states that was known for commerce, one of the highest, economically generating states, in the 60s and in 70s, that is maybe not where it is anymore. But, kudos to the government. What I would hope really is that, these are, the bottom feeders with regards to entrepreneurship in Kano State. So 50,000 naira, will help. Somehow, some way, in boosting their businesses, or at least, to some extent help them.
Right. For 5,200 women, I think, well done. So it's important to say well done. Yeah. At least they're doing something, they're not doing nothing. So well done to Kano State government. All right, we now move over to our major story.
Absolutely. All right. Now, when the Nigerians in Diaspora Organization, NIDO, was established in 2001, it was to create a database of Nigerians living abroad. Now, since that database was launched in 2009, there's been a growing interest for Nigerians living in different parts of the world to have a say in the development and growth of the country, no matter where they are. One of such major requests is, from its members is the need to participate in elections. And we've spoken about that a couple of times. However, there's been an increased sensitization of the body recently since the chairperson, a former broadcast journalist and politician, Abike Dabiri-Erewa, took office of the commission.
Meanwhile, this week, investigative journalist David Hundeyin stirred a major controversy through a tweet he put out about the organization. The tweet reads, and I quote, "I hate to break it to you, but the entire NIDO organization was literally created by the Nigerian Secret Intelligence. It's not a diaspora organization at all. It's a state-backed organization created by the NIA under Obasanjo to monitor and control the size of economic and political influence wielded by the Nigerian diaspora in Nigeria. Half of the people in those NIDO WhatsApp groups with you are not using their real identities. They're trained NIA intelligence gathering agents, feds." Reacting to this tweet is a former foundation member of NIDO Netherlands since 2002 who said in her tweets, "I have just seen a shocking write-up by one David Hundeyin claiming that NIDO members are NIA agents. While freedom of speech is the prerogative of every citizen, but I expect any reasonable journalist to base his stories on facts and not on fallacy." She says, "I am a foundation member of NIDO Netherlands since 2002. A chapter was set up under Ambassador Tokunbo Awolowo Dosunmu without any single penny from the federal government of Nigeria. To now read David's Alice in Wonderland story that NIDO members are NIA's agents shows that journalism, she basically, it's a much longer tweet, but I think that we can show that much later." Now, the chairman CEO of Nigerian in Diaspora Commission, Abike Dabiri-Erewa, took to social media to debunk the claims in a tweet that she responded to. Now, in this tweet, she says, "Though NIDO has its challenges, but this allegation is a lie from the pit of hell. I hope NIDO members will not just keep quiet." We feel that these allegations are very strong. They're very, very strong allegations. I would best to have David Hundeyin join us to clarify the things that he has said in that tweet. We have also tried reaching out to NIDO representative. Hopefully they get to join us in the course of the show, or hopefully before it ends. But for now, we have foreign affairs analyst Collins Nweke, who's joining us this morning. Good morning, Mr. Nweke. Thank you for joining us.
Very good morning to you, Olive. Thank you for having me. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year as well. We are also joined by David Hundeyin, I believe, who's also going to share. Okay, he'll be joining us shortly. But let's get your reaction, Mr. Nweke. You saw that tweet. You've seen the reactions that it's garnered across social media. Your first reaction when you saw the tweet, or the first thought that came to mind?
Thank you. I hardly took it seriously. The reason I hardly took it seriously was that I myself has been an executive of NIDO. I mean, I was the chief executive secretary at the London headquarters. And I carried on to become board chairman of NIDO Europe. Now, I'm careful what I say because, I don't want to be the mouthpiece of, the government of Nigeria, but I can speak to NIDO, particularly in the period that I was at the helm of affairs. Now, there was absolutely nothing like, what Mr. Hundeyin has alleged. I actually feel odd having to, disclaim what he has said because, as a matter of fact, it was shocking, like Lola, mentioned. And so I don't know where Mr. Hundeyin got what, the information that he put out there on X. But I can say categorically that, in the time that I was, at the helm of affairs, there was absolutely nothing like that, no indication of government officials, making overtures to us, for espionage, purposes and all of that. And I can say even categorically now, after leaving office, I left office in 2014, that, I've been in close contact with, colleagues at this moment. And I'm aware from my interactions with them that nothing like that, has happened. So it is up to Hundeyin to, prove the allegation that he has made.
All right.
Luckily, I think David Hundeyin has just joined us, so we can have him also share, his views. I mean, you've always known to get your facts before. You have always been known, rather, to always get your facts before coming out, with a story or with, statements, of this magnitude. So quickly just share with us, David. Good morning, and thanks for joining us. Quickly share with us, what exactly this claims are based upon. Do you have, did you carry out any work, that showed, or that, you're basing your claims on?
Well, first of all, even before, needing to do any investigation or anything like that, NIDO, by its own admission, you can literally go to NIDO's website and go to the About Us section. It states very clearly, very openly that it's an organization that was started as an initiative of President Olusegun Obasanjo in collaboration with Nigerian embassies around the world. So by its own admission, it's a government organized institution. So, from there, it's, anybody who understands how the diplomatic system works in Nigeria or anywhere else in the world, really, it doesn't take much to put two and two together that if the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of a country and the embassies of that country put together something, obviously the premier foreign intelligence agency of that country will have its fingerprints all over it. I'm sure you don't need me to tell you that well, let me not say the vast majority, but a good part of the operations of Nigerian embassies around the world is done in collaboration with the National Intelligence Agency. So there's a very good chance, for example, that if you meet a Nigerian diplomat, be it a career, like a second secretary in an embassy or an ambassador or whatever, there's a very good chance that they come from the inner workings. The NIA, this is on public record. Everybody knows this. So personally, I'm actually a bit taken aback to see the sort of furious response from, individuals linked to NIDO to what I said, which I thought was public knowledge, which I thought was everyone should know that if an organization was put together by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the embassies, then obviously the National Intelligence Agency has its fingerprints all over it. So, and then putting that aside, of course, I have had extensive contact with individuals who are linked to NIDO, who have worked with NIDO in the past, or who have been involved in the inner workings of this organization. And yes, I can say categorically that a very large part of the remit of this organization is intelligence gathering. It's basically monitoring the Nigerian diaspora to ensure that the amount of political or economic influence that is being wielded by Nigerians living outside of Nigeria, in Nigeria, doesn't exceed the parameters that the government deems to be in the interest, to be in Nigeria's national interest, which, by the way, is a perfectly normal and legitimate thing to do. Nigeria is not the only country that has such an organization set up for such a purpose. I think it stands to reason that if you're a country, especially a developing country, that has a very large diaspora population, and that diaspora population has the potential to wield a lot of influence back home, potentially influence the economy or fund political candidates, as for example we saw during the last election cycle, where the primary opposition candidates was largely funded, the campaign was largely funded through donations from the Nigerian diaspora, that sort of thing. I think it stands to reason that such an organization would obviously have as a central part of its remit monitoring where sort of these financial flows are coming from, where they're going, and monitoring who the principal players are in such political campaigns or whatnot. It stands to reason. So personally, I'm not sure why there is the need for all this denial. I personally don't even think there's anything wrong with the operational remit of NIDO. I think if you're a serious government, in the context that Nigeria exists in, you should have such an organization. Your foreign intelligence agency should know what your diaspora is up to. Your foreign intelligence agency should have extensive knowledge of the political and economic influence being wielded by your diaspora. Your foreign intelligence agency wouldn't be doing its job, in fact, if it wasn't creating a platform for the diaspora to converge in so that it could monitor such things. I think that's a normal thing that any the serious country would want to do. So I'm not really sure why people linked to NIDO have decided to go down this route of denial of something which is on their own website. I don't really understand why.
We'll have Mr. Collins Nweke speak to what all that you've said shortly. But just to reiterate, you had said in your tweet that half of the people in those NIDO WhatsApp groups with you are not using their real identities. They're trained NIA intelligence gathering agents, basically feds. And whilst you were speaking, you talked about having been in contact with a number of all these people who are allegedly a part of, who are meant to be a part of these organizations. Can you categorically say that you've spoken to these NIA agents and you know for sure that these people are NIA agents?
Yes, categorically I can say that. Absolutely, 100%.
Okay. Let's have Mr. Collins Nweke react to the statements. Does this, is this explanation enough for you? Do you think that this explanation, is valid?
Obviously, there is a misconception here. And let me clear that by giving a bit of background. Now, how did NIDO, Nigerians in Diaspora, come about? Now, in the interregnum between the election of, President Olusegun Obasanjo and taking office, he told the world, as you know, his main goal was actually, reinstating Nigeria's, status in the world, telling the world Nigeria is back as a democracy, the mean business, and you are welcome to re-engage with Nigeria. Now, while he was doing that tour, he actually was surprised at both the number and the quality of Nigerians living outside Nigeria who had, gone on exile. Some of them went out, during the military misrule, to actually, study with the intention of coming back to Nigeria. But, they stayed on the basis of what was happening in Nigeria. And now when he approached a good number of them to say, listen, we're back now as a democracy. We need you back to help in the rebuilding process. He was surprised to note that, not many of them were ready to return back to Nigeria to accept his invitation for many reasons. Some already had families, some weren't sure of how far the democracy is going to stick and so on and so forth. So the thought then started emerging as to how to involve these Nigerians living outside Nigeria in the development of Nigeria from their foreign base, without necessarily relocating to Nigeria. Now, that was how the idea of setting up, NIDO came about. Now, there were quite a lot of consultative, meetings, what they called at the time Millennial Consultative Assembly of the Diaspora, where, overwhelming majority of Nigerians supported the idea of setting up, a single organization that will be partner of government, in the developmental process of Nigeria. Now, one other thing that actually, gave some sort of oxygen to the idea was the fact that there were thousands, literally, of Nigerian organizations in Nigeria, but none of them could be considered an official spokesman or official organization recognized by government to represent the Nigerian diaspora. And the Nigeria at the time found a need to have such official engagement. So that was how NIDO came about. Now, it wasn't set up by government. Its setup was facilitated by government. And since then, as far as I'm aware, it has continued to function independent of government. Government has no hand in who leads it, and so on and so forth. And then, of course, one of the first tasks that NIDO actually undertook was agitating, advocating for the formation of a commission, that will take care of business on the home side. That was how Nigerians in Diaspora Commission actually, came to be. From, the bill, was signed into law, and it became an act. So since then, I want to, emphasize and re-emphasize that being in a position to know, I can affirm authoritatively that Nigerians in Diaspora Organization is an independent organization facilitated, in terms of its formation, by the government of Nigeria because of the need to have a single organization representing the interests of the Nigerians in diaspora. And of course, you have very succinctly, highlighted part of what NIDO has been doing then, advocating for, voting rights and, all sorts of other things, and then actually channeling developmental progress and initiatives to Nigeria and all of that. So that is what I can say. Now, it is for government to actually respond to some of the allegations that, Mr. Hundeyin has made against it. But from the NIDO side, I can say authoritatively that we are not aware of any such activity that Mr. Hundeyin has alleged.
Yeah, so just to clarify, you're saying the Nigerian government has no influence on NIDO's agenda. They do not tell NIDO what to do. They do not direct, for example, the 2025 agenda for NIDO. There's nothing like that the Nigerian government involves itself with.
Absolutely not. NIDO is an independent organization that has its independent leadership. Yes, of course, there is consultation with, government because government has an agency specifically earmarked to, take care of diaspora business. But NIDO also has, collaborations and consultations with the private sector, just as we do with, individuals of influence within Nigeria. So we consult with everybody. Our activities, are financed through members, donations, sponsorship, and so on and so forth. So, no, there is absolutely no direction coming from, the government of Nigeria. NIDO remains an independent entity.
And just to add to, that, are you saying clearly that, they have the people there, you're not aware of feds being in NIDO?
Sorry, could you take that again?
The NIA intelligence gathering agents that David made reference to in his tweet. Are you saying that you're not aware of any of such persons in the organization, in NIDO?
If anybody would know, I should be one of it. Because like I said, I was the chief executive, executive secretary of NIDO Europe, with its headquarters in London. And then I carried on to become board chairman. So if anybody would know if such existed, I want to say in all humility that I should be one of such person. And I can tell you categorically that in all the times that, I was involved in the leadership of NIDO, both Europe and worldwide, there was absolutely nothing of such that I am personally aware. And I have close contact and continue to have close contact with colleagues, even those in the helm of affairs at this moment. And there is absolutely no indication that how things were in my time have actually changed now. NIDO remains independent without any influence of NIA or whatever.
All right. David, let's have you react to Mr. Nweke's statement.
I think you're muted, or someone is muted. David, you may want to check your sound.
Sorry about that.
All right, please.
So yeah, as I was saying, I don't think there's any need to speak a lot about this. I'm just going to read a segment from NIDO America's website, the About Us section of NIDO America's website, and I think enough said. So it reads, NIDO is a single representative body recognized by the federal government of Nigeria as the umbrella organization for Nigerians in the diaspora. The federal policy of Nigeria mandates all foreign missions overseas to support the development of the organization. So on its own website, it says that the federal policy of Nigeria is for all Nigerian foreign missions and embassies to work lock in step with NIDO. So, this unnecessary denial of what it states on your own website, that this is an institution which was founded by the government and which continues to work, hand in glove with the government. As I said, there's actually nothing wrong with that. Any serious country with a large diaspora, which supposedly has the ambitions that Nigeria supposedly has, would have such a setup. So I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I actually think, again, the intelligence community in Nigeria would not be doing its job if it didn't have such an organization. And, more to the point, it has been very open and very transparent, even on its own website, about its origin and how it continues to function. You can refer to what I did, the paragraph that I just read out. So, again, I don't know why NIDO felt the need to come out with this furious denial of what it states on its own website. Right?
David,
there's nothing wrong with what NIDO does. There's nothing wrong with the fact that the government of a country with a ceiling as high as Nigeria has and with a diaspora as large as Nigeria has would want to somehow, at the very least, keep track of what that diaspora is up to, both for positive reasons, to potentially tap into the potential of the diaspora for all the reasons that the co-panelists stated, which is good, and also for counterintelligence purposes, to find out potentially what threats and risks are being incubated in diaspora and knowing how to negate them before they start to become a problem back home. I think that's the nuts and bolts of what a domestic or foreign intelligence agency is supposed to do. And it states this very clearly on NIDO's website. So again, I don't really understand where the denial is coming from,
okay,
or what
David,
the need for the denial is.
If I may interject at this point, I think, is it safe to say that where we're seeing a disparity from both of you is the fact that maybe it's an interpretation of what's written on the website? Mr. Collins Nweke talks about having, been in leadership and had first-hand experience. You as well are interpreting from the website. Are we saying that the issue here is based off the interpretation of the website, or can we say that you have some other verifiable evidence to further substantiate this? You did mention earlier that you've spoken to a number of the people in the group who are, intelligence agents. Is that the evidence that we're going by?
Again, you don't need to take my word for it. And I should also specify that if you are even the slightest bit familiar with how foreign intelligence works. It doesn't come out and announce itself. It doesn't come out and put a banner and say, yes, we are from, NIA, we are from DIA, and this is our job here. We are here to monitor conversations. We're here to collect information so that we can write a report on so and so at the end of the day and submit it to the deputy ambassador or whatever. They don't need to come out and state these things openly. Obviously, I have spoken to many of such characters, not just within NIDO. There are several, supposedly independent bodies in the Nigerian diaspora, which are obviously infiltrated by Nigerian foreign intelligence too, which again is a perfectly normal thing. Nigeria is not the only country that has such intelligence infrastructure. In fact, compared to other countries that do such things, Nigeria's involvement is actually even on the low side, right?
Yeah, so
this is a normal function of foreign intelligence. So again, I don't see why there's any need for it. I wasn't making an accusation. I was merely making a statement of facts, and it wasn't a negative accusation like, oh, this is something terrible. It was simply a statement of fact.
I believe it's
a lot of the people within the NIDO system are working with Nigerian foreign intelligence. That is fact.
Yeah, I believe it's it's an understanding of what the implication is, or a misunderstanding rather of what the implication is. For you, David, you're saying there's nothing absolutely wrong with it. It's not new. It happens in many countries across the world. That is standard operating procedure. And for Collins Wake and the rest of the team in NIDO, they might interpret it as a strong allegation of espionage on Nigerians living in diaspora. So maybe that's where there is a clash in the conversation that we're having. But we're out of time. David Hundeyin, thank you very much for joining us and speaking with us this morning. Collins Wake, thanks as well for joining us and for your time this morning. Great to speak with both of you.
Thank you. Thank you,
gentlemen.
Absolutely.
All right, now let's move the conversation away from the diaspora to here in Nigeria. Let's move to Rivers State. The dust does not seem to have settled after Governor Siminalayi Fubara presented the 2025 budget to the factional Rivers State House of Assembly, comprising 3 lawmakers with 27 others missing. The governor shunned the 27-member factional assembly loyal to his predecessor, an estranged godfather who currently doubles as the FCT minister, Nyesom Wike, to present a 1.18 trillion naira budgetary estimate in late December. Now, this move has continued to spark outrage within the APC camp, calling for the law to take its course.
Now, the All Progressives Congress Publicity Secretary, Chibuike Kinga, accused Fubara of perpetrating an illegality, stating that the embattled governor flouted court orders by not presenting the 2025 budget to the pro-Wike lawmakers led by Speaker Martin Amawile. Just to mention that the 3 pro-Fubara lawmakers are Speaker Victor Oko-Jumbo, Deputy Speaker Adolphus Uru-Nimiga, and the House Leader Sokari Goodboy Sokari. Now, let's, dig a little further this morning as we have joining us the CEO and founder, TAF Africa, and political analyst, Dr. Jake Ekpele. Good morning, and thanks for joining us. Dr. Ekpele, can you hear us? Okay. Of course, we'll try to get that connection sorted with Dr. Jake Ekpele, but, the conversation is centered around, once again, of course, 2025, we're back to the Rivers controversy, the Fubara versus Nyesom Wike, the controversy within the Rivers State House of Assembly, the commissioners that are resigning, just so much chaos, and of course the legal aspects of it. What exactly or which of the court rulings are we going to to respect and to honor? There have been numerous court rulings, pro and against the governor of the state. And of course, the actions that he's taken. He's currently presented a budget to just 3 members of the House of Assembly. Completely shocking. But of course, it's mostly because of the defection that happened earlier in 2024. Dr. Jake Ekpele, can you hear us now? Good morning.
I can hear you.
All right, we can hear you now.
Thanks for joining us. Happy New Year. It's the first time we're speaking with you this year. Let's get into, I did see an interview with Tony Okocha, I believe, of the APC in Rivers State as well. And he, was saying that the crisis will continue in 2025. There doesn't seem to be any moves towards a settlement or towards peace, in River State between these two factions. So let us start with that. With the presentation of the budget to these three members and the reactions to it. Does this also tell you that we have not heard the last of 2025 Fubara versus Wike? Dr. Pele, can you hear us?
Good morning. Happy New Year.
Same to you.
I was thinking.
Yeah, okay. I'm hoping that we can.
Yes.
Yeah, it doesn't look like it's going to be a successful connection this morning. So I think we will probably just have to move the conversation to a different time. But yes, there have been numerous reactions to, of course, the court ruling, the High Court ruling in Port Harcourt, that approved the Governor Siminalayi Fubara and his, passing of a budget, to three members of the House of Assembly. There have been many reactions to it, but mostly, the core of the whole conversation really is, when is this going to be over? Are we ever going to see, that these two factions, eventually find, some middle ground, that there's peace in River State. It's not necessarily violence at this point, but it feels like governance is continuously being interrupted. And both sides are to blame. The governor himself, has his own fair share of the blame, same as those who, of course, are countering every move that he has made since he became governor. And it's a really, really sad thing to see play out, also with the involvement of the different courts, and, what we can obviously tell is clear evidence that Nigeria's judiciary also has its own flaws with the rulings that you see, one side, one court today approving, of certain actions taken by the governor, and then 2 weeks later you have a different court, saying completely otherwise, interpreting completely different.
Just to mention, for those who may not have been following the full story, what we're reacting to is the fact that the High Court sitting in Port Harcourt has, of course, dismissed the suit that was asking that the governor represents his 800 billion naira budget to the 27 aggrieved lawmakers. If you go back to the origin of this whole drama, started when these lawmakers left their political party and said they were no longer members of the political party, and unfortunately when the president intervened, part of the peace accord agreement was that these members who had left would of course be deemed as though they had returned back to the party. Unfortunately, that has not become the case. We'll come back to talk more about this, especially with the Defense Counsel's allegation, the presentation of court documents stating that Nyesom Wike once presented to 6 lawmakers in the House. We have Mr. Abike Epele still here with us. Let's hope that we can connect properly this time. Mr. Epele, please, if you may speak to the court dismissing the suit of the suit saying that the governor should represent his budget to the 27 aggrieved lawmakers, citing instances where Governor Nyesom Wike presented his budget to 6 lawmakers, and then we can pick up the conversation from there.
Well, thank you, Olive. Look, when it comes to budget matter, it is not a game of figures or trying to present how much money the state has. It's about governance. It's about fiscal responsibility. It's about provision of social services to the people that are in their need of it. So it's not a political tool. It's not a political maneuvering. It's not a political pundit where these individuals think that they can hold the truth of the state to get along with their political interest. And so we are glad that this dust has finally settled, and the fact that the governor can go ahead and serve the people, ensuring that he is held accountable. And I want to use this opportunity to say that it doesn't matter what is going on. The governor on its own part must show himself responsible and ensure that this budget that has been presented is well executed. As far as I'm concerned, and in the lens of the law, this process is legal, legit. Unfortunately, the number of people making this decision is abysmal. But however, that's what these lawmakers have thrown the state into, a state of legal anarchy. And I think it's time we call it what it is, that they should stop manipulating the legal structure to their own inordinate ambition. And we will continue to monitor development. It's a good thing for the state. I think as far as budget presentation and who to present it to, the dust has settled. And unfortunately for the pro-Wike group, is settled in favor of Governor Sim.
Has the dust really settled? There was Tony Okocha of the view that this rift could have been settled, especially if Siminalayi Fubara had taken advantage of the festive season, not just to celebrate with the former governor, but also to wish him happy birthday, as his birthday was in December. So he foresees that this rift will last a very long time. So again, do you see the end of this rift anytime soon?
Well, I was saying the settlement I was talking about is about the budget. The issue of Tony Okocha calling the governor to send a birthday wish to one that the FCT minister, who is considered an enemy of the government, is laughable. Why should he send a birthday wish message or whatever he calls it? It's his personal view, it's his personal choice if he wants to do that. I'm not against it, but that's not the crux of this discussion, of the discourse. The discourse is how we can move the state in terms of governance forward. Is about how we can ensure that rule of law thrives. Is about providing the much needed social services to the people who are in their need. I mean, I just came back from River State, where I launched my pet project, Cash for Elders. I know how much suffering these people are going through. I know how much the little cash that I dispensed to these elderly people, how much they appreciated it. So we should be talking about what we can do to move the state forward, not what we can do to move the ambition of individuals and a group of individuals whom I have said times without number, their antecedents, their attitude, their body language shows that I doubt whether they are of River State indigen, because the way and manner they want to destroy the governance, the physical resources that will come to the people, sometimes I begin to wonder whether they actually truly have people in that state, although many of them have mansions in Abuja. So they don't really care. They don't care about the people. They don't care about the people.
Are you saying, on both sides now? Are you speaking about, the politicians, on both sides now, the Fubara camp and the Nelson Wike camp?
Yes. Yes.
And also, I did see, an analyst, describe the ruling, which is, of course, gave credence to or gave approval to Sim Fubara to pass his budget to 3 people. It was described as a very strange, court ruling. So, I mean, do you agree with that? Do you find that really, really worrisome?
Well, it wasn't strange, and that's the problem with politicians. They move the goalpost whenever the scoring opportunities is opposite. It wasn't strange when the obnoxious judgment of the High Court. It was not strange when they manipulated the legal structure and got the Federal Court of Appeal to affirm the decision of the High Court. Now it looks strange because the highest court in the land, the Supreme Court, have said that ruling was nothing to write home about. I think there's nothing strange about it. Unfortunately, when they were propagating this kind of political manipulation of the legal structure, they did not understood what they were going into, just like they did not understand when the 27 lawmakers were waving APC flag, when all of them were saying, we have moved, we are now on the other camp. They did not know the importance, the legal implication of what they were doing. And today, that's what happened. And that's what happened when you have a manipulative tendency. You make unnecessary mistake, childish mistake. And that's what they have done. They threw, I said this at several times, that they are going to throw the state into a constitutional crisis. And that's exactly what they've done. But thank God that the Supreme Court have rescued the state and the people. Now, you know, my brother, I want to be very honest with you and balanced. This is not just about Pro-Wike. On the side of Fubara and his team, there are also some things they need to work on. The difference is that the Fubara camp is willing to listen, willing to dialogue. The other ones wants to destroy, burn the house, burn it down, I don't care. That's the situation. And people like me will not be silent. I will keep speaking. And thank God for media organization like yours. And I'm not surprised. The balanced view that News Central brings to issues, that's anybody that knows Kayode and his team will know that that's exactly what you get. So we will continue to lend our voice. We will not be silent. Our voice will not be taken from us. We speak for the people, not politicians or political interest. Yes, I don't like what is happening in my state, but I guarantee you, Jake Epele, will not keep quiet, and I cannot be silenced.
All right. Unfortunately, we, of course, out of time for this. Thank you very much, Dr. Jake Epele. We'll continue to see how the political tussle in River State turns. And, of course, we would look forward to always having you join us and share your thoughts with us. Good morning, and thanks for joining us once again.
Thank you, my brother. Please keep your voice resonating. I doff my hat for you and Olive, the kind of balanced views you bring to discussions like this. Please keep it going. That's an example of a non-gutter journalism. And I doff my hat for you guys, even though I'm still wearing it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate that. Right, and of course, that is the update regarding River State presenting its budget to 3 lawmakers. We'll be following up with the updates in River State, but let's share with you a recap of the conversations we've had and then let you know what's coming up next. This morning on Breakfast Central, APC challenges Fubara's budget presentation to a 3-man committee. Of course, this is, as the court has dismissed the approval of the asking for him to represent it. And then we talked about the allegations against NIDO by David Hundeyin. We're joined by David Hundeyin himself and Mr. Collins Nweke for a balanced conversation. Governor Yusuf disburses 260 million naira to empower 5,200 women. We had Emmanuel Bagudu bring us that report. Let's share with you what's coming up next.
Coming up next, HMPV virus. Is Nigeria prepared? And also the newspaper front pages. What are the major stories making headlines across Nigeria this Wednesday morning? We'll also be bringing you Which Way Nigeria. Welcome once again. And now let's take you through the newspapers and share with you the major stories making headlines across Nigeria this morning. Joining us to discuss these issues is public affairs analyst Sheson Okoade. Good morning, and thanks for joining us.
Yeah, good morning, sir. Good morning, Olive.
Good morning.
Happy New Year.
Happy New
This is
Year.
the first time we're saying this.
Yes, and another special good morning to you two for reasons that we can't discuss on camera. We're greeting you specially.
Yeah, especially.
I hope that you receive that special one.
I receive it specially, at least to start the year.
All right.
Okay.
We kick off on the Punch newspapers this morning. Let's see what we can find over there. It says there, bandits influx. Task force meets as Amotekun and police tighten southwest boundaries. It also says, your security chiefs hold closed-door meeting in Ibadan. Ondo, Oshun, and others review strategies. Also this morning on the Punch newspapers, Tinubu calls for Africa's unity. Obasanjo, Zuma attend Mahama's inauguration. Congratulations
to Ghana.
Second time that he's being president of Ghana.
And the one thing we can agree on is that the majority of the population seem to have wanted him. Of course, it feels like it was an election that reflected the will of the people. There's celebration across Ghana.
Absolutely. All right, PDP differs as Okweolu accuses 2 local government chairs of 12 billion naira diversion. Interesting. Romance scam. 2 US-based Nigerians face 40-year jail term. And also stampede on his ex-queen and others allege illegal detention as Oyo opposes bail.
Wow.
A threat to life article, Labour Party carpet Tinubu, APC lampoons Peter Obi. And also tax reform, Northern elders and governors maintain opposition as senators lobby. These are the big stories that we can take this morning on the Punch newspapers.
All right, on this Nigeria newspaper, let's lift our nations out of poverty. Tinubu charges Mahama, says Nigeria, Ghana's bond can't be broken. New Ghanaian president promises to tackle corruption, debt, and unemployment. And on the front page, you can see a picture of Nelson Wiki and his son, Jordan, during the graduation of the son with a Master of Law from the university in the United Kingdom.
Oh, I thought he was going to go to Uniport.
I thought he would go to Delsu, the Delta State University, for his master's. I'm really surprised that he went to the United Kingdom. Wow.
Not even Uniport. I mean, as a former governor of River State.
Do you understand? So even if he didn't want to use Uniport because he doesn't want to be too close to home, at least you can go to like Delsu, Abraka, or you go to Uniben. Or bad as bad, you come to Lagos and do Unilag.
As if they've done the work to make them go to that school.
This is really shocking.
It's a surprise.
But it's not only to him alone. We have a lot of people that they show this affluence to us day by day. You have past governors, the serving governors, they put it in the media for us to see.
Later, you'll be wondering why ASU is always on strike. Anyway.
They will always be on strike.
It's completely out of character.
They don't have any stake in it.
Yeah.
Completely out of character.
It's out of character. Normally, our Nigerian politicians, they are very passionate about education. They would usually have their children schooling in Nigeria, university, secondary school, and their masters,
they
even
all
up to PhD level. They all do their treatments here in Nigeria. And moving on, the tax reforms bills disrupt January to December budget cycle, Senate panel chair argues. NDLEA arrested 18,500 drug traffickers in 2024, according to Marwa. FCT electricity consumers geary planned power interruption. Okweolu, Edo, PDP, Bika, over alleged remittance of 12 billion naira by suspended local government chairman. That's all on this Nigeria. Let's get our final paper.
I think we can just squeeze in the Daily Times newspapers this morning. It says here, equities market index drops 0.24% as for 152 billion naira wiped off market value. You can see a very interesting picture there of President Bola Tinubu with the past president of Ghana, Nana Akufo-Addo, at the swearing-in ceremony of John Mahama as president of Ghana in Accra. Really interesting. You know, you would never see an outgoing president in Nigeria so gleeful and happy at the swearing-in of the incoming president. It's almost never going to happen.
Well, except Jonathan.
Yes.
Jonathan was very diplomatic. He called Buhari to say congratulations.
Yeah, but that was just a phone call.
It was just a phone call, but
I don't remember if Obasanjo was at Yaradua swearing in. I think
even both of them are even party, even if they're the same party.
Yeah. Anyway, we can also find here Felix Morka's attack on Peter Obi signals APC authorization. Maybe you meant to say authoritarian government, says Atiku Abubakar. And also police dismiss one constable, demotes 4 officers over misconduct in Bauchi. Nigerian Navy rescues 8 police officers and a civilian from capsized speedboat. Seems to be the Daily Times, somebody whoever is editing these stories. Retrenched CBN staff asks courts to award 30 billion naira compensation. Anyway, the major stories this morning are, I think I will start with the issue on the Punch. The task force meets as Amotekun and police tighten southwest borders. If you remember, Governor Seyi Makinde had raised the alarm of the possibility of bandits, coming into the southwest. It's not new. I think we've heard about this before, but the question really has been what must be done, and where are we with regards to preventing that from happening? Do you think those fears are even more legitimate now in 2025?
This will take me back to that issue. This is the period that I give respect to the late Akeredolu. I'm sure you know he's the major champion and the backbone of this Amotekun while he was still governor and was still alive then. And I think his exit created a lacuna. A lot of us have actually said that we can't do the same thing the same way and expect different results. What do we mean by this? The policing of over 200 people is in the hands of very few at the center in Abuja. This administration, before they came in May 29, 2023, part of the things we were told is to bring in the issue of state policing, that they believed in it. And I saw Mr. President came out with some body language to show that this will be. But up till now, we've not actually had that constitution amendment to actually give power for state policing. But we saw this advent of regional policing came up while Akeredolu was governor and the chairman of the Southwest leader then, where they had to push for this in order to actually close the gap of insecurity. Osaga, I need to let you know that if we must change the level of insecurity as we speak, we must give room for local policing, state policing, as is obtainable in the developed world. If you go to US today, you see the county police, you see the metropolitan police, you see the state police. At a particular time, if anything is happening, you see like overlapping people making themselves available, because security is very strategic and synonymous with prosperity. If an environment is secure, I can tell you for free, everybody wants to delve into that place. I'm sure you know that the northern region, the north is the north where we have this insecurity prevailing themselves, has been a shadow of itself when it comes to business and development. A lot of people are leaving and migrating. Even now that they are putting pressure with the Lakurawa and the other people coming up, they are looking for other areas to settle. And this bold step, being carried out by Amotekun and other state governments is to tell you that if the law is not coming up, can we write on what we have, the existing rule? I remember Amotekun going through Lagos-Ibadan Expressway. And then you can see people having that confidence. The other time that they attacked at this Onigari along Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, the Amotekun was able to resort swiftly in, combating the act that those people are. And he also passed the message to those that want to come that there are people on the way. There was a time I was coming from Ibadan to Lagos, and there was an accident that happened. No security person, but the Amotekun were on ground to quickly rush in, even when individual could not go to that.
So why do you think that all the things you're saying, they're not new? Everybody has been talking about it. We've talked about this over and over again. You've advocated for it. So why do you think state police has not yet officially kicked in?
Well, because we are politicizing it. I will say that here. We are politicizing it. People feel that you want to empower the state government. They will make use of this security apparatus during the election. And I ask, how often do we have election? Just once in every 4 years. And you think that once 4 years, we actually metamorphosed into creating insecurity for business growth.
It's a reflection of what I believe Nigerian politicians know. So they are aware that these institutions are weak and they can be used by anybody who has.
But what stops you of putting those rules, policy, follow through to make sure that you strengthen it?
No, it's not going to work.
It's not going to work.
If you strengthen them, then it's not going to work for you, right? If the police and other security agencies know that they represent Nigeria, not the person who is president, then the president cannot wield them anymore and use them as a stick against whoever he wants to. And so because they all know that, so when they talk about state governors will weaponize them or use them. So it's like replicating what you have at the center to use against them. They know.
But I think we need to have the orientation about that if things must go. If you look at this level of bombing, attack, some of these things happen in the local. I have a friend who has been to Zamfara. He said, even to Maiduguri. He says, I'm in Maiduguri. I said, where you are is the heartbeat of the states. So nothing will happen. But go to the suburb. When you hear of attack in Kaduna, it's not the main Kaduna. During the time that people were talking about attack in Kaduna, left, right, and center, I was in Kaduna for like 2 weeks. And I move, we go to club and leave club as late as 12 midnight.
Wow.
In Kaduna.
Wow.
Yes.
Mr. Okwade.
Because where we were was the heartbeat of Kaduna. So and I asked myself at that point in time to say, where is the insecurity that they are talking about? You see some of this attack happening at the suburb, where we don't have the presence of the security agency.
This club, is it you will do like perimeter watch? Just
those are the areas where we try as much as possible to balance some of the equations that we've had during the day and you know, reestablish those connections.
And you know, your commander-in-chief approves of this?
It's at times when we are there together, the commander-in-chief even make the provision for the funds to be used at that particular area.
So wow.
So we discovered that some of these things happen in the suburb, and that's why we are advocating to say, can we diffuse the power, empower the traditional leaders, empower the local government in such a way that when you have strangers, you know, coming into your area, you're able to nip it. Okay, you're welcome to our area. What do you do? If you see any stranger in an area where you don't see robbery happening, and two people suddenly come in and armed robbery start happening, you go and ask questions. Sorry, sir, we've not been seeing this happening in our environment.
Is that simple as more? I mean, the basics is if you look at those of us, like those people who live in estates.
Estates, yeah.
By the time you get to the gates, estate security knows you. Yeah. If for some reason, maybe it's a gate, you need access and you know you are not able to get an access code, there is a recognition because they know you. It's when they don't know you, they're now putting out, there's somebody in the group, who is this person? So if you bring it to the grassroots level, as simple as
that's what we solve this problem that
again.
But if you continue with this,
I'm also worried because I mean these are currently just fears. I'm not sure what information Governor Siminalayi has, or the rest of the Southwest Governor leadership has. But if the Nigerian army has been struggling, you know, against these bandits and whatnot for more than a decade, what is Amotekun going to do?
If not for anything, you have, I'm sure they are equipped, and your state is big, and I understand the fear of Governor Siminalayi. The last time I went as far as going to Shaki, where they have their boundary with other neighboring countries, not even states, and it's far. You can see vast land in that area where people can just stand, perpetrate evil. In fact, let me tell you, there are some areas on that particular road you struggle to have network. So you can imagine, it's huge. And those are areas where these miscreants, where these bandits, where these people have their settlement to perpetrate the evil that they want to do on people that are actually carrying out their businesses in that area. And that's why I'm of the opinion that if you can bring it to the locals, empower the traditional rulers to say, if your environment is not secured, it becomes a problem for you. And that on its own will be a threat to development in your locality. The local government knows that it is its own responsibility to make sure that its environment is secured. With that, you can now attract. When you say foreign direct investment, they are not going to go to Abuja. They are not going to come to Lagos. Some of the raw materials that these foreign investors need is in the suburb.
Yeah.
And when they don't have access to security, a lot of investment is now being put on them to secure themselves by saying you have to get the security apparatus before you can have access to some of the raw materials. And this on its own will in turn increase the cost of production of that organization. Okay. That's how it works.
All right. I want us to quickly touch on, I don't know if we ever discussed this with you, but Edo State, the sacking of the local government, or suspension of the local government chairman by the executive. The governor had said that they of course, hadn't given explanation for how funds was used. And the argument was that people would say, you are the executive, you are the governor, you should not have a right to sanction this local government chairman, that if at all it should be the councillors, to suspend them rather. It should be the councillors so that he's stepping out of his jurisdiction. But I don't believe we had the conversation with
No, we've not had that conversation, but my position on this is fine. The local government, with the autonomy that they have, they are not responsible to the governor. But one thing I always tell individuals is collaboratory. There must be this collaborative act between just the same way we have the governor and the federal government having an handshake in things that they do. We should have the same thing between the state and the local government. And what do I mean? if a local government is having unrest, the governor will not throw off his face and say he doesn't know anything about it. But I think the approach of this ego, trying to say I'm the leader, you know, when you try to enforce yourself as the father of the house and you don't earn it, it becomes a struggle. And that's what we're saying. I see ego playing out there because even on the part of the local government, if you have a good relationship, nothing stops you as local government chairman to make, you know, available some of these reports to your state governor to see how you are faring. But when there are issues where somebody feels that, who am I to report to you? I report to your boss. I'm responsible to my people to give account to the federal government. That's where you see some of these tussle. And that's why we keep saying that irrespective of what happened at the federal, at the state, at the local government, there must be this collaboration between them to know that they are there to serve the people. And when two elephants like them fight, it's the people that suffers. It's not that they are on suspension. Activities in those local government will definitely slow down if it is not completely grounded. So who are the people that are suffering? The state governor is not suffering. The local government chairman that has been suspended is still enjoying the largesse of some of the things that he has in his custody. So it's the people that are actually having the failure of that governance. And that's why we call our leaders to order to say, you must collaborate, whichever level you see yourself. No one is bigger than the other, but put at the back of your mind the interest of the people that you serve, and whatever it will cost you to have good relationship and harmonious relationship, you just have to do it to make sure that the people enjoy the dividend of democracy.
Yeah. Just quickly on the response, I mean, I think Atiku Abubakar is the one who's carried the story. A threat to life, Atiku, Labour Party caput Tinubu, APC lampoons Peter Obi. We did see the response from, you know, APC representative somehow, you know, to Peter Obi's New Year message.
Well, for me, on this thing, I don't speak for politicians. They are same of the same. If it is other way around, you hear this thing. Even the man that is complaining about the threat to life, I know when he was governor, when some people will write, they will say, what I passed out yesterday, the people from the governor is threatening me. One thing you should realize about some of these things that goes on is that at times, the followers carry out the acts on behalf of their principals, even without the knowledge of the principal. We consider that as bad. Not even the major spokesperson or the likes. A lot of people will come and issue threat from left, right, center, forward, because everybody is protecting the interest of their principal and what they are all eating from it. So at times it's not from, you just say, federal government. So when you hear bars from here, you hear booze from here, and everybody's looking at it, say, no, they're actually issuing threat. At times it's the followers. If it is other way around, we've seen instances that the current government, when they were not in power, when they come out, I've heard continuously that period, like Mohammed, they will come out and speak, and the next one he said, people are actually threatening my life, I need security.
I don't think Peter Obi said the federal government is threatening his life. I don't think that's what he said. He said he had received, you know,
threats to his life.
But he didn't say.
And they said one Felix Walker had gone on, you know, to speak about.
Yeah.
So for me, it's a normal thing for the politician, and it cut across all of them. It's coming from this side because they're on the other side.
Yeah.
If they're on the other side, you always hear the same story to say people are always issuing threats to their life for the statement that they made.
Yeah, we need to go. I remember former Governor of Kano State, Rufai, you know, had claimed back then that Goodluck Jonathan had invited a sniper team.
Yeah, you understand. So and that's how the politician makes use of some of these things. 4,
so on the kill list. All right, we need to go. Thank you very much for joining us.
It's a pleasure to start the
Welcome to the new year, and look forward to seeing you again. All right, we've had pretty interesting conversations this morning. Let's now move into sharing with you which way Nigeria before our final conversation this morning. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Now, in every democracy, criticism is not just, inevitable. It is essential. It is part of the process. You don't need to like it. Actually, nobody even cares if you like it, but it must happen. In a functioning democracy, it is part of the process, and we can argue about it being constructive or not later. That's a different conversation. But in reality, nobody even owes you or any government constructive criticism. And again, you don't need to like it to hear it, but you must allow it. You see, every administration, no matter how much good it does, it will still have its faults, and that's part of it. That's the nature of governance. No matter what points you want to make about the successes that you have recorded, you must still have faults. And the existence of what you describe as positives should not be enough to stop anyone from pointing out what the negatives are. So if you claim that you've built 10 roads, it should not be enough, to convince or to stop anybody from saying, well, you might have built 10 roads, but healthcare is still a mess. And again, the role of citizens and opposition figures or groups is to hold the government to account. And you must allow freedom of expression and diverse perspectives. Again, nobody owes you constructive criticism. It's simply just advised. Keep in mind that the ruling party in Nigeria is always so lucky. You barely have any actual threatening opposition. The opposition parties and politicians are as weak as feathers. Half of them confused. The other half are looking for ways to join the ruling party or working as moles for the ruling party. And so really, the current government doesn't have much to even feel threatened by. And so it's important that as we call out government, we must also put fire at the feet of those who claim to be opposition party members. But for people like Felix Morka and the current government, again, progress never comes without imperfections, and criticism isn't an enemy to be silenced. It's a mirror reflecting the truth, whether you like it or not. Take any administration, you would find roads built, industries developed, gains will likely be recorded, but alongside those gains, you will find missteps and oversights and sometimes outright failures. Now, these failures are part of their record, and they must be acknowledged and they must be spoken about. For example, while Felix Morka was responding to Mr. Peter Obi, it will be on the record of the current administration that under their watch, a military base in Borno was attacked and Nigerian soldiers were killed. You don't need to like it, but it's on your record. And it must be said. It is going to be on your record that Nigerians suffered the worst economic crisis under this administration. And their narratives as to why it had to be so have not been convincing enough. So again, you don't need to like to hear it, but you will be criticized and you must allow it. And if you have more compelling arguments, then please share with Nigerians. Mr. President had a huge opportunity during his media chat, if you remember, to speak on all his policies and tell his critics to shut up. But arguably, he failed. So it is your responsibility as the government in power to properly communicate and have compelling arguments and points made to convince the people that you are truly on the right track. And if you can't, don't start convulsing because others point out your flaws better than you can explain them. Good morning, Nigerians.
Welcome back. There's been a recent viral outbreak causing global concern, and that is the Human Metapneumovirus, or HMPV. Now, with reports of overwhelmed hospitals in China, the world is definitely on high alert. So, the question is, what does this mean for Nigeria? How vulnerable are we to this outbreak? And what measures are in place to prevent its spread? According to the Nigeria Center for Disease Control and Prevention, or the NCDC, they are committed to safeguarding public health and are working closely with the Federal Ministry of Health and Social Welfare to monitor global development and take proactive measures. But beyond the assurances from the NCDC, there's a need for the public to understand what the HMPV virus is, its effects, and how it spreads. As we discuss Nigeria's preparedness, we'll also be exploring the importance of public awareness and education in prevention of this virus. We'll be joined to discuss this by Professor Oyewale Tomori, who is a virologist and the former VC at Redeemers University. Good morning, and thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning, and Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year to you as well. Certainly hearing about a virus is not the way that we want to start a new year. And Nigerians are worried for obvious reasons, especially because if you look back at 5 years ago, sometime in February was when we had the first case of COVID come into the country. So should Nigerians be worried about this new virus?
Certainly, sure. We should be worried. We had the experience, as you mentioned, 5 years ago. It's almost the same type of thing that it started in China. Although this is a new virus, it's not COVID, it's not influenza. It's a virus that was actually discovered way back in 2001. But it seems to be the one causing the problem right now in China. And we should be worried. Because our people go to China, and the world is a very small place. Traveling up and down now is an easy thing, just like we had it in 2020. So it is possible that we can also have it here too.
Tell us exactly what the HMPV virus is.
As the name says, it's a pneumovirus. They call it metapneumovirus. Like I said, it's not like the influenza virus. It's not like the COVID. It's a different kind of virus, more related to what they call the respiratory syncytial virus. So it causes the same type of symptoms. People have cough, they have, fever, they sneeze and spread the virus through their sneezing. They contaminate the environment, and that's how we get it. And the same system that we use for control of COVID will probably be the same we have to use because it's a respiratory infection. So basically, like I said, it's a new virus. Let me not say it's a new virus. It's a virus that is causing a major issue now. It's been there all along, like I said, over 20 years ago.
Yes, I mean, you based on what you said about the virus having been there, if you can help us turn down the volume of your TV, it's interacting with our conversation. But just to mention that the virus has been around, according to reports, since 2001. That's about 60 years. The virus, or over 60 years. The virus was first discovered in the Netherlands, they say. But I think my concern right now is if they say that, because that's part of what we're hearing, that we shouldn't be worried about this, how the virus has been here since 2001, how it's just a regular cold that's typically prevalent during winter. But if we remember how COVID occurred, China wasn't giving a lot of information until things had then gotten out of hand. So in this situation, are we expecting that China gives us full disclosure to maybe at least calm the fears of people around the world if they're saying that it's nothing to worry about?
Whenever I tell you there's nothing to worry about, please deceiving yourself. I think it's the right thing. We shouldn't panic, but at the same time, we should be prepared. I heard the NCDC said we have a moderate risk. What exactly is moderate risk? Let people know. We've had the experience before in 2020, and the world saw what's happening. I would rather be on the side of saying, I'm not giving you panic, but I'm saying get prepared. It has happened before. Virus is coming in different forms and ways. The fact that it's been there for a long time does not mean it cannot. Condition may arise, and the virus may re-emerge when given the right condition. And this may be what is happening. Indeed, China is not telling too much stories. WHO has been appealing to China to take something, and that's the reason why we in Nigeria should take it seriously. We should all these things about moderate risk. Why did they determine moderate risk? We don't even have the reagents for the current virus to test in Nigeria. So how do you know what risk you're talking about? How many cases have you tested? The influenza tests that we do normally at the beginning of the year, I mean, how much of the labs are working in Nigeria? That we can say we're depending on the WHO to determine for us what the risk. We are the one to determine the risk in our different countries. check test your samples and be able to take that on, not what WHO. China is not talking. So how do you determine the risk?
Right. I mean, that's a very key point you've raised there. We can't determine, we don't even know what we are up against. We don't know what we are fighting against. Just to mention earlier, to correct something I said earlier about, yes, it was discovered in 2001 in the Netherlands, according to reports, but there are researchers who have argued that it's been around for as much as 60 years and, you know, it's just been going around. So I think the question here is, yes, we don't know what we're up against, but until we know what we're up against, how can Nigerians protect themselves?
I think the same thing we did. I think we learned a lesson from what happened in COVID. Improve our borders. You know where the cases are occurring now is in China. Therefore, one of the easiest way where it can come in. Actually, like the COVID came in from Netherlands for us, I think from France or something. So also, this can come from outside. Therefore, we need to monitor our borders. We need to monitor the ports where people are likely to come in with this disease. But if you see what is going on in our borders now, I think it's a joke. I've been through that with Lagos Airport. How many people are filling the forms? And even if we fill the forms, who is handling the forms? What are we doing with the forms? What information are we getting back to people? You're telling me to fill forms. You don't give me feedback on what you have found with it. And that's one of the areas where we're making an error. We need to be more serious with our borders. We need to be serious with the forms that we're telling our people to fill. We must be able to tell them the reason why we're asking them to fill this form. And we must feed back to them that the forms we have filled, this is what we have done. We don't get that in this country. You just tell me, do this, do that. And I don't know what happens after that. Then the thing comes and booms, and then we have it. So we need to really, yeah, please go.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask. I mean, after COVID and the cases reduced and the world finally went back to normal, there have been many questions raised as to if the world really got the truth about what exactly COVID was, where it came from, if masks were really helpful, if the vaccines were truly relevant, if they really saved lives. There's too many things that, some people have said, these questions remain unanswered, or they haven't gotten any confident answers from the relevant authorities, and of course, from the pharmaceutical industry, in the West. Do you think that that is still where we are? Can we trust the narratives of HMPV, seeing how COVID was addressed?
Yeah, I agree with you. There were a lot of errors made about COVID and all that, but I think we're focusing on the wrong issues. It doesn't really matter to me that much where the virus came from or how it came. Maybe you can learn something from that. But the problem was that it caused a lot of people, millions of people died. And let's separate the fact from the fiction. Millions of people died from COVID. There's no doubt about that. Many people didn't die in Africa, but when you look at the global thing, it was a major global issue. That's number one. Number two, the vaccines worked. Let's not deceive ourselves. Yeah, in spite of all the stories coming out, vaccines work, and these vaccines work. They were not perfect vaccines because there are also problems with them, but they worked on the long run. And some of the stories that we heard about chloroquine being very good, now we know that those ones were not true. The chloroquine did not act as it said it would. So we are learning a lot of things. And I think the best we can is that seek the fact from the fiction of all about COVID and use the fact to plan your lesson. And that's the problem with this. COVID came to Nigeria, killed people got infected. This is a virus, and it's coming out from where it is coming there. We better be prepared for it. I'm not saying we should panic. We should prepare. We should learn from the lessons of COVID and do this thing. One good example, the only way you and I can make anything confirmation is how good is your lab. If you have to know that your cases are occurring from lab, people tested outside your country, something is wrong with your lab system. You remember when we started with COVID, they said we had only about 3 labs. Then suddenly it boomed on to 160. Everyone was building labs all over. But do you know, even before COVID finished, 60% or more of those labs were no longer functioning because of the Nigerian factor got into everything. These are issues we need to be addressing. Tomorrow, if this could become the NCDC can still not tell you because they don't have the reagents for the pneumovirus that is here. So are they telling you that the risk is low? You can't test, you are not testing, you are just depending on what WHO is saying, that the error we made in the past. These are lessons we need to learn. Build up your system. I use one word. I think when people are talking about restructuring politically, I think we need to restructure our disease surveillance in this country.
Yeah.
Take the control of the NCDC. Let each state and local government carry out their own sovereignty. That's where the cases are occurring, and that's where the labs and the disease surveillance should be, not in NCDC in Abuja.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people would agree with that. If we can decentralize, how these healthcare policies are made, of course, how move them to the states like you've mentioned. But aside the infrastructure, or rather aside the porous borders that you mentioned, what other levels of healthcare infrastructure do you think we're still lacking in? That we would need to have in place if this becomes a full-blown virus?
I had a problem when we're running helter-skelter, setting up centers all over to take care of the number of cases. Now is the time to get your people ready. Get out of the Christmas holiday mood. We have the problem coming at hand. Get our IPC ready. Get, first of all, your first approach is your health workers. Make sure you protect them, because they are the ones that will eventually be taking care of the cases. Provide them with the basic necessities, the IPCs, the gloves, and the whatever, sanitation and all that thing. Keep up, remember we said this is spread. Somebody sneezes, contaminating the environment, so hand washing, all those factors which we knew about COVID should be in place. It's not, we shouldn't go on holidays with sanitation and all those things because we don't have cases. It's really an everyday affair. Our health centers must be a place where you can safely go and be sure that you're able to get something else because of the poor situations. Get our health workers working, continue the awareness, keep telling people about what is happening. How do you transmit this? How do you prevent it? How do you make sure that no other person gets around you? These are things we need to constantly be telling our people. I watch the TV, all you talk about is, my president went to France, my president went to toilet. What are we talking about, the life of the people? This should be an actual everyday affair that we should be getting to our people. Your health, your living, your death, your life. These are important things, more important than where my president goes to or doesn't go.
All right, Professor Oyewale Tomori, thank you so much for your time with us this morning. Hopefully the next time we're speaking about this, it would have not yet become it won't be as, it won't have gotten worse. I think that's a better way to put it. We don't want a situation where Nigeria would have to deal with this because we cannot afford this right now. We cannot. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. I agree with you.
Yes. And China can say one thing, really. China is saying, no, don't panic. It's just a regular, it's like the regular flu. Started. Exactly. And China was very, very careful with information. With COVID, they downplayed the importance of COVID until it became an epidemic, and then the whole world, a pandemic rather, and then the whole world was running helter-skelter because of their mistakes. So I think what the world is saying would rather err on the side of caution. China, how much information do you have about this virus? Whatever information you have right now, share. However easy or however much you think we shouldn't panic, please share.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just still pointing out that I feel like I don't think that we got, the truth and the clearest picture from, COVID. I feel like there's still many, many questions that were left unanswered, and then they're important questions. Yes, we can leave the where it came from conversation, that can be on the side, but I also understand that it was so much chaos going on in 2020, but do face masks really work?
And those jabs that we took, they said, all the people who are talking about the after effects.
Yeah, so all these things, I don't think should be ignored, because I don't think the world is willing to go through another trial and error process, with a new vaccine. Nigerians and the current economic realities, I don't think they would be able to survive shutting down the country again, because of the existence of a virus. But we'll see. Hopefully not. Thank you very much for joining us and for staying with us all through the program this morning. We hope you enjoyed it. We're going to be back here again tomorrow morning on Breakfast Central. It's bye from me for now. I am Osaogie Ogbawa.
And I am Olive Emodi. See you again tomorrow.